Welcome to another DragonLance Saga review with a stretched out image. Look at that. Welcome to another DragonLance Saga review episode. It is me, Sham Floorgreen, the 25th, and I'm an hour and like 10 minutes early. I have nothing to do right now, so I just thought I'd jump on and do this. Hey, Chris, how you doing? Hi, my name is Adam, and today I'm going to give you my review of Dark Heart by Tina Daniell. I would like to take a moment and thank the DL Saga members and invite you to consider becoming a member by visiting the link in the description below. And remind you that you can always pick up DragonLance gaming materials using my affiliate links. Those are also in the description below. All right, so the way these work is I have an opinion. You may have a different opinion. You may share aspects of my opinion, but not others. That's okay. Share your thoughts in the live chat if you happen to be watching live, or in the comments if you're watching it after it's been live. And in either case, we don't have to agree. Life is difficult. Everyone has different perspectives and opinions. It's okay. But we can all get together and love DragonLance together. Phrasing. Okay, anyway, this is a pre-written review, and I'm going to give you my pre-written review that I write as I'm reading it. I usually break it up into thirds of the book. And I'm going to be honest, I'm a little bipolar with this one because there are aspects of this book that made me cry. There are aspects of this book that made me scream in rage. And there are aspects of this book that I desperately love. So I think that's a testament to a good book, personally, but I guess we'll find out what you all think. All right. You finished this one a couple of days ago. Your DL novels have been geared toward young adult. This one has hardcore Game of Thrones vibes. Yeah, I don't know about that. Yeah, maybe. Yeah. Let's get into it. All right, here's my review. Most of this story immediately flooded back to me as I started reading it. We begin with Kitiara, Uth Matar, and her father, Gregor Uth Matar. He had brought her with him on a mercenary mission, and his insistence that she's a boy, not a girl, was to erase any concern from his partners. She saw him interact with lords and mercenaries, imprinting in her mind his worth, intellect, and strength of arm. Then we flash forward to her waiting for her father to return, and she runs across another mercenary who's clearly heard of her father, but doesn't know where he is. His name is Ursa Ilkinth. They bandy back and forth, and he's impressed with this child, Kitiara. We flash forward again, and Rosamund, Kit's mother, is remarried to a woodcutter named Gillen Magir. Rosamund is suffering. I know it's Majare because he chose that name out of his love for the god Majare, according to the Soulforge, which was written after this. But I can never say Majare when referencing the Magirs. It just sounds weird. I feel ooky inside, so I'm not going to do it. All right. So let's see. This is Rosamund is suffering from fevers and trances that she cannot control. Now, this is an aspect of magical talent that is never explored elsewhere, but it even blends over to Raistlin. I truly wish this was explored in future novels, as seeing the future would be a great story beat. But Rosamund is pregnant and calls for the midwife, Mina, not that Mina, the one with two N's. Kit rushes to the midwife's home, who is surprisingly defiant initially, then races to the home and helps with the birth. This scene was read through blurry eyes. The process of birth can be horrid for the woman, but it is two of my favorite memories and most happy and proud experiences. Witnessing and aiding in the birth of my two children, then cutting the umbilical cord and dancing and singing to them, dancing with and singing to them while my wife was being tended to by the nurses and doctors. It was a magical experience for me, and one that is as close as any to any of us being able to be an actual god through creation. So Caramon comes first, and they're surprised that there is another baby in breach. They work the baby out, and it's sickly. Rosamund is passed out, and Mina tells Kit to be prepared to bury the baby in the morning. It's not worth the effort that Kit is putting into keeping it alive. This infuriates Kit, who slaps Mina across the face, and I laugh out loud. Mina is beside herself and notices Gregor has returned from work to discover the situation, knowing nothing of the birth. He overhears the remark about the ill baby and told Mina that they were even after she demanded to be able to punish Kit herself. This ingratiates Kit to her father-in-law, and she actually got to name Raistlin. Caramon was named after a strong Valenwood, and Raist was named after a cunning character in the stories that Gregor would tell Kit. We flash forward to Kit helping raise the boys. Newborns are no joke. They take constant attention, and Kit dealt with it along with her father as Rosamund was incapacitated most of their youth. The boys grow and learn their talents, and Kit truly loved them as much as she was annoyed by them, as all siblings do and are. Then a spring festival came to town, and Raist ran off to watch a stage magician. He studied his tricks and recreated them all, impressing his family. As Caramon was developing into a large, strapping young lad, Raist continued to be sickly, and his father was concerned. He decided to take him to a local magical instruction school led by a mage named Morath. Raistlin was interrogated for a full day, impressing Morath, even though he refuses to admit it. Raistlin was younger than the other students, and he didn't think that he would be able to be instructed, but Morath was truly impressed. He decided to allow Raistlin to join the school through his own scholarship. This was, of course, completely reneged by the Soulforge, but I almost prefer this version better. I like that his father loved him and wanted to do right by his son, rather than some rando mage headhunter. Raistlin has his first vision of the future here, and again, I truly wish they would explore it more. Kit overhears mercenaries talking about a plan and follows one who ends up being Ursa Ilkinth. She begs to join him, and she's ready to leave Solace, and with Raistlin in school, she's not needed as much. Ursa refuses, but says she could ask him next time she sees him, as third time's a charm. She tells Raist that she's leaving anyway, but not when, and one night she sneaks out of the house. Kitiara races north and eventually finds Ursa and his companions, trailing them, and at night sneaks up into their camp only to be discovered. She asks to join them, and they eventually accept, as she is the right build for a decoy for their current job. They go over the particulars and, in the coming days, set the trap. The group is going to ambush a wealthy Solamnic's son, who's transporting payment for a road under construction. This road is being built as the son is going to marry the Lord's daughter, though the Lord Mantilla is none too happy about it. Kitiara is to appear as the kidnapped Lord's son and lure the inevitable rescue guards away. The band of ruffians cut her hair short and make her a fake mustache from her hair. Then something that seriously bothers me happens. It is stated in the text that at this moment, Kitiara is 13 years old. A child. And yet, the author treats her like she is a woman. A ruffian who cuts her hair, a shapeshifter named El Navarm from Carnuth, a land far to the east, comes to her, and she ends up having sex with him. There's no reason for this scene. It dramatically changes Kitiara from owning her sexuality as a woman and weaponizing it when she needs to instead being the victim of childhood rape, as children cannot give consent, even if they want to, because they're children. She then uses the inevitable trauma, repeating it throughout her life. I cannot express my frustration with this act, and I must have completely forgotten it, or not realized that she was still a child until I reread it just late last week. You don't sexualize children. I don't care if it's a fantasy novel. I don't care if it's your own sick fucking mind. You do not sexualize children. This could easily have been avoided by the author saying she was 16, which I still don't agree with because she's still a fucking child, but at least in fantasy terms, she would be an adult, or even in her own sick past. As long as, she's like of 15 or something like that, she would be of age. But 13? 13? Have you ever seen a 13-year-old girl? It's not cool. You do not put that on anyone of that age or younger. It is not okay. I don't care if it's a female writing the novel or a male. It's wrong. And that crosses all cultural boundaries for me. Like, you cannot excuse that. All right, so rage rant over. The job is pulled off without a hitch, and Kitiara returns to the camp as expected. But no one is there but the corpse of the kidnapped Lord's son. He is mutilated as if by an animal. Ursa arrives and tells Kitiara that it was the shapeshifter that she pines over who killed the boy, and they are not going to split the reward with her. He gives her the boy's sword instead. Kitiara tries to fight, but she's a child, and Ursa is a grown, trained mercenary. He leaves her bruised and unconscious. She travels looking for them, but ends up in a small town hungry and alone. She ends up working in a kitchen for food and meets a dwarf named Paulus and a boy named Maita. They become friends, and when Kitiara is ready to leave, they both go with her. The innkeeper jumps them on the road with some Kaghanasti elf mercenaries, but they defeat them after Maita was killed. They part ways and Kitiara returns to Solace. She stays longer than planned, but has no prospects on the horizon. Then a man named Patrick, a royal lord from Gwynedd, arrives with his mute manservant slave, Strathco. They ask her to guide them around town, and Kitiara and Patrick hit it off. They become romantically involved, and he asks her to marry him. She accepts and says goodbye to her family, then heads off to the coast in his waiting ship. Kitiara is 16 at this point. While I don't think anyone should ever get married at 16, let alone be in a serious relationship, she's a woman per fantasy standards, so whatever. I don't recall exactly the end at this point, but this Patrick rubs me the wrong way, so we'll just have to see what comes. With only a third of the novel left, I can't help but wonder what the actual point of this novel is. Is it just watching the family grow up, or is it Kitiara's acceptance that she'll never find her father? The final third of the novel truly delivered for me. No, Kit never found out exactly what happened to her father, but she pressed the captain of the ship as he seemed to know the name, and he said that Gregor was killed by his men in treachery. Later she would learn that the men sold him out, and he may or may not have been hung in a town called Whitset. No one from that town would recall exactly, so the mystery was dropped by Kitiara. But a lot happened between those realizations. Kitiara notices Patrick slowly growing more despondent, and ultimately, after her talk with the captain, the first mate told her that Patrick did this every year, brought a to-be wife home, but never married her, believing she would be good enough in his mother's eyes. This particular voyage ended drastically different, however. There was a dark elf. How Kitiara knew he was a dark elf, I have no idea, as dark elves are not physically dark, they're simply outcasts. So she notices a dark elf eyeing her, and Patrick, then one night she awoke to Strathco bursting into her room with his throat slit. She ran to Patrick's room, and he was dead in bed. Knowing that she would be blamed, she grabbed her belongings and leapt overboard, barely making shore alive. Then she found some work with a farmer and went into town during a tournament. She entered at the last moment, fighting a tough-as-nails dwarf, and they end in a draw, splitting the pot. She was then approached by Ursa, who was running from hunters. It turns out that his crew has been picked off one at a time, then brutally murdered. What we discover is that Lady Mantilla went insane after they killed her would-be husband. She killed her father for setting up the murder and sent assassins after his killers. It took years, but they finally located most of them, and now that the sword was randomly discovered on Kitiara, they believe it was Patrick who killed her. Now he's dead, and Kitiara and Ursa are the only two remaining. They continue trying to evade the hunters together and take a job killing a slig that was terrorizing a town. Kitiara is introduced to another of Ursa's compatriots, an elf named Kolo. Together they hunt and kill the slig, then they are jumped by assassins. Kolo saves Kitiara, but Ursa is captured. They evade capture for another day before hunting the assassins and learning about Lady Mantilla in Estwild. Both Kit and Kolo decide to hunt her down and try to rescue Ursa, as Kolo also tells how Ursa worked with Gregor, though she's not 100% sure. Kit puts this information aside, and they make the long trek to Lady Mantilla's Nightmare Keep. It's described like Morgana's castle in my imagination from the film Excalibur. Dead soldiers hanging from trees, dead landscape, the shell of a castle, and a single tower left standing. Awesome. They enter, and the lone surviving jailer is thrilled that they've arrived, as he was told that he can go free if they do. The women split up to search for Ursa and Lady Mantilla. Kolo finds Ursa locked and beaten, and Kitiara finds Lady Mantilla. She's about Kit's age, but looks like a sea hag, described brilliantly. She had near-dead knights serving her, and a dead mage Kit is afraid of until she cuts his hands off and realizes he's already dead. There's a bunch of back and forth that describes how Ursa was the one who betrayed Gregor, and Kolo comes in helping Kit fight the knights. Kolo defeats one of them, but is killed, and Kit is trapped by magic, but gives the lady her betrothed's sword that Kit is using. The lady ends up being overcome with grief and emotion, and as Kit runs to leave, she kills herself, releasing the magic of the castle. Kit comes across Ursa, who initially denies the charge of turning on her father, then admits to it and tries to kill Kit. She beats him and leaves the keep, noting that the shapeshifter she encountered in panther form earlier has killed the jailer and gone free. She mounts her horse and travels to Whitset to seek news of her father. She ultimately gives up searching and grows a name for herself as a mercenary, taking the nomenclature Darkheart. She then gets a letter outside Planthus from Caramon talking about how Gillen has died and Rosamund is near death. Kit returns to Solace and stays long enough to see that she's not needed and doesn't fit in. When Rosamund finally passes away, Kit leaves again. This was such a great look into Kitiara's life. And after reading more in the Lost Chronicles, it makes me mad that she dies in Legends. She is such a great character, so complex and full of contradictory emotions that she deserves to be around longer and not just as the love artifact of Lord Soth. If you enjoy Kitiara as a character, you have to read this. And if you just want a great adventure story with a female lead, read this book. All right, what do you guys think? You caught the DragonLance board game. That looks fun. Yeah, that was a good time. When Kitiara says she swears never to end up feeble like her mother, it really reframes her life choices and her demise. She followed through on that promise. Yeah, I always loved how she was constantly aspiring to be the image, this imaginary image of her father, and to be of substance like she believed he was. And even when his image did not live up to her expectations, meaning he could be betrayed and potentially killed by the men he led, that did not dissuade her. It emboldened her. If anyone wants to see a believable, strong female character with every bit of flaws and a wonderful growth arc, Kitiara is the perfect example. Now, you can sort of parallel her with the good side in Laurana, but I would argue that Kitiara is a much more interesting character than Laurana. Much more complex, too. You're guessing this is before Kitiara left and ended up joining Lord Soth. Yeah, this is actually before the companions all got together and met. This is the preludes. So this is called the Meetings Sextet, where all the companions met initially in Solace. And it really deals with the birth of Caramon and Raistlin and Kitiara's growth as a warrior. You love the section that Kit fought hard for baby Raistlin to survive out of spite to Mina more than sympathy for the baby. That rang true. Yeah, I felt like it was both because initially, and I think it did explicitly state that in one point, but initially it was because she didn't want to give up on the baby. It's her brother. You know, just because it's weak right now doesn't mean it's going to be weak the rest of its life. And it's a freaking baby. If you've ever held a baby in your arms, if you ever had a baby, you understand how fragile and how beautiful they can be. And it's a promise of an actual good human in a sea of horrible humans. Let's be honest about our species here for a second. The baby is a promise of having something that's better than the worthless sacks of flesh that populate this planet. Of course you fight for that. Of course you make sure that survives and breathes, and to then just suggest that why even bother because you're probably going to have to dig a grave later. She's lucky that I wasn't the one there because I would have beat the shit out of her. Like, that doesn't deserve just a slap. That deserves being beat down because how many other children did she give up on simply because she didn't think they would survive, thereby ensuring that they didn't? I get emotional about stuff like this. All right, you love the section that Kit fought. Okay, sorry, you already got that. You did catch that. The kid either. It's pretty messed up. Yeah, man. Albert Witch, thanks for tuning in. Michael, thanks for tuning in. Good to see you guys. Way messed up. And, the only argument that one could make, which still doesn't hold any water, is, well, what if they were both kids? It doesn't matter. They're still children. They cannot make those types of serious decisions, like sex, as children. You can't. Your brain isn't even fully developed yet. Period. And that doesn't even happen until 18 to 21 in most humans. So let's not pretend that, even at 15 or 16, these kids can still make these adult decisions. No, they can't. And it's despicable and vile that in some cases they're allowed to, or they're taken advantage of in some cultures. It's not okay, is what it is. The part where the panther shapeshifter, what is in my eye? Couldn't be killed was weird and goes against all. Well, first of all, where did this guy come from? This was the whole land Carnuthian. I don't know if that's what the second generation would then look back on and say, oh, okay, well, there's a warrior culture that we can call on, even though they're not shapeshifters. You know, we'll just sort of use that and just sort of change it around, you know, where the brutes, the Tarmac came from. But it's just like the only mention of this one species that is able to do this. It's very, very strange. Totally came out of nowhere. And so, like, if you're just going to make stuff up, you know, which all of this is just made up. But if you're just going to make stuff up in this universe, that does seem wildly overpowered. Like, you're a shapeshifter, but while you're shifted into a shape, you can't be actually killed. So you're just a god? You're a beast lord? You know, you're like Bast? You know, you're like a demigod or something? Like, it makes no sense at all. It's so obscure. Let's see. The novel makes you love Raistlin and Caramon's dad. Yeah, me too, which frustrates me that Margaret Weiss totally reneged that storyline. Made it some random Amothus guy, or I can't remember what his name was. It'll come to me as I'm thinking. But just some random Wizard of High Sorcery just happens to see Raistlin and he's the one. Yeah, let's ignore the fact that the father is the one raising the children and he would be the one to put him on the path. And let's have some third party do it. Just because, what? He's a Jedi looking for new Jedi Padawans or something? Give me a break. And then when I did the whole Raistlin video talking about his whole history, I ignored the Soulforge part because it's ridiculous. And people were like, get Raistlin right. You didn't get the facts right. Such a loser. I'm like, you idiots. Don't you realize that came after this? Like, this was real until that was published. So spare. And if that's the one thing that's going to drive you to like angry fist pump, you must have a great life with no problems in it. Oh, people. They're the worst. Do you think Raistlin's life personality would have been drastically different if their father had survived? No. No matter who wrote Raistlin in whatever book, everyone agrees that Raistlin is just out of the womb him, you know. Part of his life experience informed how he behaved to other people, but he always cared about the downtrodden and those that were picked on, always. And he always wanted power. It sort of came, maybe you could argue it came from the father's side of his family that he never was actually a part of. Imprinted through Kitiara, possibly. But it could also just be the opposite of, you know, seeing the strength of Caramon and knowing you'll never be that means that you need to focus in other ways to be just as powerful in different aspects of life. And I love that because then Raistlin is not as much a result of his environment and circumstances. He is just Raistlin. He's the exception. You like the origin story where Raistlin's mom's visions was her lack of control over innate magic within her. The aspect was missing. And I like that too. And I like how her inability to control the visions is a result of her not having any magical training. And if she would have had magical training like Raistlin got, she probably would have been an incredibly powerful magic user. And just that idea that magic is so powerful in Dragonlance, not only does it have to be controlled by an order of high sorcery to protect all of Krynn, really, and the gods had to create that order or else they would have destroyed the entire planet in the Second Dragon War, that it drives you mad. Like, magic is so strong, it will drive you insane if you can tap into it and not know how to use it. Which also argues that there should be no sorcerers and there should be no 5th Age version of magic, because magic is so potent that you would go crazy if you tried to use it without formal training. Do the other novels ever solve the mystery of Gregory Uth Matar? Not that I can recall. I think it's left a mystery. I mean, they gave several possibilities in this novel, and I don't think it's really important. I think once Kitiara gets to that town of Whitset, and she talks to all the survivors of that incident, and no one can recall exactly, we don't need to know why. And Kitiara doesn't need to know either. She's content at this point to say, okay, well, my father's memory will live on through me and through my actions from what I learned from him while I had a chance. But I'm my own person. I'm no longer the shadow of my father, and I'm going to make a name for myself. And that's the strength of Kitiara. She's not beholden to anyone, not to anyone's legacy. She is her own woman, and she is strong. Did the dads of the other 3 kids ever know each other? No. No, they did not. Wait, did Gilon know Gregor? I don't think so. He probably knew of him from Rosamund when she was not in some weird delirium, but no, I don't think he knew him. Kitiara being 13 in that scene was what gave you Game of Thrones vibes. Very disturbing. Okay. Yeah. Except that in Game of Thrones, in the film, that ended appropriately with her having the dogs attack and murder that Bolton bastard son. Let's see. You flew through the book because the dialogue was very enjoyable, which is not always the case. Yeah, I intentionally stopped myself after 100 pages so I can remember everything I read and write it down for these reviews. But yeah, if I didn't stop, I would have been done in a day and a half. This was a very enjoyable novel, even though there are parts that I had problems with. You've forgotten that Kit worked for Odic just like Tika did. Odic was a great guy. I don't know that she worked with him. Like, she hung out and he put up with her, but did she actually like work there? Like, I thought she just sat in a corner and chatted with people. Plus potatoes. Let's see. Would this be a big reason as to why Raistlin is bent on being a powerful wizard? I think Raistlin's dynamic with Caramon is the reason why he was bent on being a powerful wizard. You love the aspect of magic being dangerous and requiring sacrifice and training. D&D 5e makes it too easy and accessible to everyone. Yeah. Actually, my next week's video is going to be how Advanced Dungeons & Dragons makes you a better player. And it compare and contrasts 5th edition with 1st edition. And I'm sure people are going to get butthurt over it, but what are you going to do? People get butthurt over everything. But I think it's true and it's real. And the points I bring up are very valid in my perspective. And so check it out when it comes out. All right. Well, that is all I had. I just jumped on because it's been slow today, and I figured I might as well be productive with my time than just sit down and do nothing. So the next book coming up is all about Sturm, The Oath and the Measure, and it's by Michael Williams. So fingers crossed. He's hit and miss with me. I actually owned this book, and I've read it, and I remember enjoying it when I first got it. So hopefully it's good. Hopefully. All right. Well, that is all. That's all I got for this review. Thank you for tuning into this review of Darkheart by Tina Daniell. What do you think of Kitiara having sex at 13 years old? Oh, ruin innocence is what it is. Do you like how her hunt for her father ended up? And finally, should we get more stories about Kitiara? Feel free to email me at info@dealsaga.com or leave a comment below. I would like to take a moment to remind you to subscribe to this YouTube channel, ring the bell to get notified about upcoming videos, and click the like button. All that goes to help other Dragonlance fans learn about this channel and its content. This channel is all about celebrating the wonderful world of the Dragonlance Saga, so thank you so much for joining in the celebration. So, until next time, this is Adam, that's me, with Dragonlance Saga, that's this, Slanjavar.